Welcome back to Autodesk Maya. In this tutorial, we're going to discover the power of the outliner. So the outliner is basically a display, a list of all your objects, basically everything in your scene. So this can include cameras, can include lighting, it can include particle effects and actual geometry, actual geo. So everything, pretty much everything in there can be listed in there. And you access it by going to Windows and go down to Outliner, and it'll open up. I have it in the Maya Classic workspace docked over here, but you can always drag it out and have as a floating window, or you can drag it back in again, just waiting for that blue line to appear, and then release, and then you have it sort of docked here. And basically what you have here is a list of the different things. So we have the cameras here. I have the scene here of this Captain America shield with a little bit of animation here. And I can click on these little plus signs to open up the objects and see the different nodes throughout here. Now, you can do lots of different things with the outliner, but I want to kind of express a little bit of a connection to the other main windows that you guys will be using in the future, which is the channel box and the attribute editor, and kind of see the connection between each one. So if we look here at this object, if I open it up, we have different groups. These little folder icons represent groups, and if I open them up, we have actual objects here that are selecting, and they're named over here in the channel box. You can see it. So there is a direct correlation. If I click on the whole shield, you'll see here it says hero underscore shield. In the channel box, you'll see this red line here down, and that's because this has actually been animated throughout the scene here. So that's what that indication is telling you. If we open up the attribute editor, we'll also see the hero shield with its transform node, which is the first node here. If we click on individual objects, you'll see other nodes throughout here. So I don't want to get too much into this right now, but I just want you to see the correlation of these objects here and these other two basically windows that are very important, the attribute editor and the channel box. Again, we'll get into both of these later on, but we're going to focus entirely on the outliner for this tutorial. So the main thing about the outliner is you can do searching, which is really great for organization. So if you need to find something, like if I wanted to, I could just type in something and it'll basically isolate it. So if I type in center, it'll basically isolate all the words with center as the prefix. Now if I wanted to change that prefix of any of these, I could highlight them by holding down the shift key, click on all of these. If I want to change all these to, say, I don't know, something else completely, and then go under modify and go down to prefix hierarchy names, and in here I could give it a new prefix and then click OK, and it would change on the fly. It's based upon what you basically have highlighted here. So under the modify menu, there is some abilities to deal with naming here. You can search and replace names, another good one. So if you have, for example, I have already set up here underscore left and underscore right. As you can see here, these all have underscore L for each of these brackets. If I want to replace these, I could have them all switch to R here and just make sure select is checked. And as soon as I hit apply, you'll notice they all turn to R. So these two windows you can use to expedite your sort of naming convention. Now you should have some sort of naming convention. You shouldn't, in fact, let me undo that because I want to leave that back to L. You don't want to have everything in your outliner be just random. For example, if I click on the sphere here and add a sphere to my scene, once it's in here, if we go to show objects, let's see, clear below, and then collapse everything. Oh, I have center still highlighted here. I'm going to remove that, and then it will show the whole scene here. Now what you can see is that I have this P sphere 1. If I duplicate this object by hitting Control D or Command D on a Mac, you'll see here it says P sphere 2. These aren't very good naming conventions because they're just the default for whatever basic geometry that you start with. Having this be called Hero Shield makes a lot more sense, especially since it's Captain America's Hero Shield. Um, that's sort of the convention here. Now I have it grouped, and I can open up the group, and in here I have other groups of objects, and then I have some pieces of geometry here. The cool thing about Outliner is you can move objects in and out very easily. So for example, the star, if I did want to move it out, what I'm going to do is actually duplicate it. I'm going to hit Control D, and it will appear as a star number 1 automatically. And then I can hold the middle mouse down and drag it out, and if I move it out to a certain point, you'll see either a dash line or a line around the object. If I put it between the two objects with a dash line, it'll basically bring it out. If I drag this to the object, what it'll essentially do is parent it. So now it's linked to this object. It will follow it like a parent-child relationship. So that's basically what happens there when you middle mouse drag. You can also group things. So if I wanted to group these 3 objects, which I don't really need because I have a duplicate copy, but I would just hit Control G or Command G on the Mac, and instantly we have a group now that we can move around on its own. This group can be renamed just by double clicking, and I can call it whatever I want, random stuff, for example. Typically, when I name stuff, I have capital letters. You have to understand everything is case sensitive here. So I will have like random, and then stuff I would have uppercase S to start. Otherwise, I would have maybe an underscore is another popular way to separate the naming convention. But you basically want to name things because you don't want this mess of, what do I do here? What is this M plane 1? That's the bottom plane here. I didn't really name it for anything reason. I probably should have, called it bottom plane or something. It's a really good idea to name these different things and keep them organized, and then your scene will be so much cleaner rather than just having random stuff. I'm going to go ahead and delete this just by hitting the delete key. Under the display menu here, there are some options, and then under show there's also some options. For example, under objects you can basically choose just geometry to focus on. So now I only have the geometry in here. Or I could add lights, and so now I have a directional light here that's showing visible. If I want to show everything, I can just go clear below, and then everything in the scene is basically visible. The help menu, if you need to help find stuff, you can basically go through here and figure out stuff on the outliner and so forth. Under display, you have a list of different things here, and a lot of these are unchecked. You'll notice here this main one, the DAG objects only, basically means it stands for the hierarchy of the scenes, your object hierarchy. And these basically are the transfer nodes. So the main 2 ones are the transform and the shape node. So if I uncheck this, you'll see I have all of a sudden all these extra nodes throughout here. Some are shaders, some are basically history nodes that are in here, and there's like IK solvers and so forth. So there's lots of nodes here that you don't necessarily have to have access to that are in the scenes that you would see in the attribute editor, again in the channel box also. So you can hide them basically by making sure this is checked, and by default it should be checked, so you basically have these main objects here. The other one that's really important to look at is the shapes. The shapes, if you open up, like in here is the camera shape, everything in here has a shape node. And if I go to the attribute editor here, you'll see the shape node basically has to do with how this object was constructed, the actual points in space. So again, you don't always need to access that, so I usually keep that unchecked too. And so this is basically the setup by default that I usually keep with. The outliner can be very powerful. Really nice thing about objects like this, if you have Hero Shield, Say I want to duplicate this, I could hit Control D or Command D and basically duplicate the entire object along with all the other objects inside. Now here's the problem. These are named exactly the same. So that's why it's good to have, this number 2 past it by automatically. That's what happens in Maya. It does this for the groups, but it doesn't do it for the inside. So it's something to note that if I open up both of these, you'd see a star and a star. If I was doing some sort of coding where I would apply a script to look for star as an example, it might have some conflicting issues. So again, this isn't a big issue for my scene because I just duplicated this whole scene here. But if I did have two things that were named exactly the same, even in separate groups, could become an issue. A lot of times with my naming conventions, I'll have either, if it's a left side or a right side, I'll have the underscore L or underscore R. If it's something that's repeating, I'll put like an A, B, C, D, A. You can see here. And then designate pretty much the center or top, and then the group be a little bit more descriptive. For example, the left straps here. If we rotate the scene here, you can see it's this whole left side that's being included. And then when we open it up, you can see here's the support, which is the structure here. And then you have these brackets that are throughout the piece here, the whole geometry all the way down. And again, all you have to do is collapse it by clicking the little plus sign there to, bring it up or bring it down. So that's a brief overview of the outliner. It's very powerful. It's very useful. You always want to keep your scene organized, especially important in the industry. You never want to hand this off to somebody, like I had before where it was, P sphere 1, P sphere 2. Like, it would be a total mess. They would have a lot of issues with trying to name everything and bring it together. So until next time, see you soon in Autodesk Maya. Cheers.